WOVU LP, Cleveland.
This is Open Door with Vince Robinson. In-depth conversations with people who are making a difference in the lives of others here and around the world. Culture is at the heart of who you are. Know your culture, find yourself on Open Door with Vince Robinson.
Grand Dawn in Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome to another edition of Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is Kofi Piesie. He is the author of Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. That's a mouthful, and I'm sure that there is plenty to unpack in that title, in that book. I will say this about Kofi Piesie. You know, they describe James Brown as the hardest working man in show business. I'm just going to put this out there. Kofi Piesie is the hardest working man in the publishing business. He's been putting out books left and right like crazy. And this is one, I guess it's your latest. So why don't we start and you can tell me a little bit about the book, and then we're going to talk about Kofi Piesie TV and the other things that you have going on.
Okay. Well, first, my name is Kofi Piesie. I'm a member of the Session My Ani Meta group, who's trying to become an scribe. I'm also a member of the Masi Warrior Clan, where we specialize in West African history, culture, and customs, and I'm also a member of Kofi Piesie Research Team, where all members are specialized in African culture as well as African American studies. Just to touch on the book real briefly, Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans and the Sex-crazed Conceptualization. I created the book, we all understand the African slave trade and the Sahara slave trade. I wanted to highlight and go through the psychology of the Arabs and the Europeans as I began to dig a little deep in both slave trades. I started to see a trend of castration amongst Africans at an all-time high, and the utilizing of sex. So, again, just broadly, I want to just talk about the psychology. Where did this Mandinko theory develop? Where did this Mandinko develop from? So I talk about how specifically the Europeans went back and forth in their minds to justify the rape of African women, to justify the sexual abuse of African males and females, and also justify the horrendous acts, dealing with sex in general.
Okay. There's quite a bit there, and we can talk about that as our show progresses. You mentioned the various entities that you are involved with, and, I'll just let folks know the way that I found out about you was through our friend and partner, Kevin MC Chill Hurd. And I know we don't want to date this program, but as we have this conversation, our dear brother is over in Kemet right now. I'm sure his eyes are wide open. He's taking in all of that good stuff. You mentioned meta nature, and that's exactly what he is immersed in right now. And I'm thankful for introducing me to you and the folks that you are collaborating with, and the great things that you're doing to raise the bar in terms of consciousness and awareness. This book is part of that, paradigm, and a number of other books that have come to my attention as a result of what you're doing publishing wise. So if you want to, you can tell me about the three entities that you mentioned earlier, and what role they're playing in elevating consciousness of Africans in the diaspora.
Okay, well, the first group I mentioned was the Seshu Ma'ani Meta. which we are aspiring to be true scribes. And, the group was, formed out of a class that, Wu Jiao had back in 2015, and the class didn't want the class to end. So we formed a group called the Seshu Ma'ani Metanetra group. And this group, skill set is to demonstrate that people of color in real time can transliterate and translate the text, or what y'all consider the hieroglyphs, or what the remix would consider the sesh, which is the writing in real time. You don't have to look at J.P. Allen or a Budge and so forth. You can, we got people in real time that can transliterate the text. And the Masi Warrior Clan, which is another group that I mentioned, is a group that was founded by Unc West and Benjamin Njai and Brother Nahisi. And they created and put together a group or a collective of men who was well studied in African culture and tradition. Everybody was talking about Kemet, which you just mentioned, our brother Kevin Chills over there in Kemet right now, and so everybody was talking about Kemet. So there was a thing on Kemet. So they put this group together to, to show the other side of Africa. Okay, we know about Kemet, but a lot of us don't know about West Africa, because most of us, we descend, or our ancestry comes from West Africa or Central Africa. So that group was put together again to, to highlight West African culture, traditions, and languages. And the other group that I belong to, that I helped found, which is the Kofi Piesie research team. It's a collective group of men who is well studied in African culture, and customs and traditions, and Moorish culture, and African American and South American culture. So we kind of touch on all regions in Kofi Piesie research team.
Mm-hmm. What was it that awakened you to your relationship to Africa, and I guess was the catalyst for your activism about things that relate to our relationship to Africa?
Oh man, honestly, it was a conversation. I've been a Freemason for about 15 years, and I started to develop a love for reading as I joined the organization. And over the years, I began to start questioning a lot of things as I started to read this, started to indulge in different material, but just actually having a conversation with another Freemason from out of state somewhere. We kind of had an argument back and forth about Moses, and from that conversation, I listened to the brother, and he gave me a few books to pick up. So one of the books I picked up, I think, was Dr. Ben, and from me reading Dr. Ben's book, I think it's Black Man on the Nile, that kind of changed my perspective and my outlook on the thing. And I think that's where I became conscious, or I became aware. And the more I began to read, I made it my business to dedicate myself in immersing myself in African culture and tradition. And as I began to learn things, I started to share those things via, as I learned, we all learned a phrase that I created a few years ago, which is now also a brand. Now it's as I learned, we all learn is also a brand. So, I believe in, the same way that our ancestors back in the day, far as Dr. Ben, John Henry Clark, Asha Hilliard, John G. Jackson, and so forth. And prior to them, our ancestors coming out of slavery, they believed that education will free us from some of the hardships and also develop, black men and black women in its highest form. So, that's where, I get my inspiration from, is the ancestors, and sharing much information as possible to the people. Cause I believe in the same thing, that it can make, make better fathers, better mothers, better sons, better daughters, and better people in general.
Mm-hmm. I'm just sitting here thinking about a common theme that I see in the organizations that you mentioned, and the spirit of, I guess, your mission. And it seems as though war is in the midst of it. And when I hear how you describe the importance of these books and what they meant to you, it's obvious to me that one of the most powerful things that you can do, one, is read, two, as a result of reading, become aware, and three, you become that warrior when you share the information and knowledge that you are obtaining through these books. So I'm just looking back at the Masi Warrior Clan and a series of books that you put out there, and the term spear was, I guess, integral to all of those things. Could you talk about the importance of reading and writing and how it is critical to your mission?
Yeah, man. Writing, man, is very important. I mean, and I'll speak on today's time. There is a laws being passed. The critical race theory. Everybody, the critical race theory came up about resurfaced about 2 years ago. But the critical race theory has been out since the 70s. And one part of the critical race theory, they talk about education, and now they are trying to pass laws right now in different states to eradicate our history. They already have basically eradicated through the educational system our ancestors' contribution. Now they're trying to eradicate everything all together. So right now, in this days and time, it's very important for people that look like us to write and tell our stories from our own perspective, because, in the next maybe 20 or 30 years, our children and their children may not have no material to go to if we don't continue to stand on our squares and do what's right and write publications from our own perspective and from and from our own worldview. And even those who have wrote and told it told our story has always gotten our story wrong from different Europeans coming in and observing our culture, not understanding our culture, and writing different things about our culture, which is, is untrue and are far from the truth. So it's very important, to, to write, especially like I'm saying in these days of times, and those individuals that I mentioned, like a Dr. Ben and those, they understood that at one point in time too, that it was very important for us to put out these publications and these writings and get it out to the masses of people. And looking at that surgeons of those ancestors who put out those books, it was a halt at one time where there was no publication, there was no writing from people that look like us. So that is where we began to pick up. You had people that was writing, but now, we're trying to write. That's why we put out more. We putting out publications, because we understand the importance of writing and getting our stories out there and getting the true story out there. Yes. As well. Yeah,
the true story is the critical story, and that's why they don't want that story to be told. I've often thought about the fact that, as was mentioned by Malcolm X and others, you can't depend on your oppressor to give you knowledge of yourself. They keep knowledge of yourself away from you so that you cannot empower yourself by knowing who you are. Great conversation, and we're going to continue in just a few moments. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU, Burton Bell Carr Community Radio. My guest is author Kofi Piesie. He has written a book called Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans, and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. We're going to talk more about that when we get back. We'll be right back.
Since 1997, St. Luke's Foundation has awarded millions of dollars each year to positive, impactful organizations that serve you and your community. And now it's time to put the money where your mouth is. So we're introducing Lift Every Voice, a platform created to hear directly from you. We want to know what's important to you and what's important for your community, so St. Luke's Foundation can put all these millions in all the right places. And sharing your voice is easy to do. Go to lev216.org and sign up for the Lift Every Voice email and text updates. It's completely anonymous and totally free. And your voice will impact where, why, and how St. Luke's Foundation spreads that monetary love. Head over to lev216.org and sign up now to help lift every voice in our community. This message is brought to you by St. Luke's Foundation and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is author Kofi Piesie. He has written Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans, and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. That's a mouthful, and there's a lot to unpack about that book, and we're going to talk a bit more about that book before this show ends. But right now, we're talking about the importance of literacy. Specifically, we're talking about the importance of providing a narrative to our young folks and to, elders as well, because we all need to know the truth. You have talked passionately about the importance of doing what you're doing in terms of publishing the books that you've been publishing. And these books have a relationship, a direct relationship to African history, the history of the diaspora, and you talk specifically about West Africa and about Kemet. And, when we were having this conversation earlier, I was just thinking about that connection, because so many times we want to isolate Kemet, and we want Kemet to be the central topic in terms of our looking back at history. But I'm connected to Dr. Tony Browder, or to Tony Browder, and others who are doing research on Kemet. He's over there various times during the year doing excavations of some of the sacred spaces in that area of the world. And what he has discovered is that there is a representation of Adinkra symbols, which we know come from West Africa. And we see these Adinkra symbols in the Medu Neter. So I think we can safely assume that there is a connection between Africans all over the continent. And I think it's also important to note that, when we think about Africa, many times people misconceive it as a country, but Africa is actually a continent. And at last count, and I could be wrong about this, but there are 55 different nations. And those nations, many of them were created out of the Berlin Conference of 1884, when they just basically carved up Africa and assigned different parts of it to different countries in Europe. But the fact of the matter is that there are nations of people in Africa, and we are related to those nations of people. So I just want to tie all those things together and just let folks know that we have a history that is tied to all of the continent, West Africa, Northeast Africa, what they call the Middle East and all of that. And you are immersed in understanding the relationship between those countries and us here in America and other parts of the diaspora. So with all that said, what is it about Africans that Africans in America need to know?
I mean, they looking for us, man. They need our help, and the Africans, the continental Africans, they need our help. You know, they love us, and I can speak from a place of I have a relationship with the Gay and Juro Skills Academy in Gambia, and you know, I have a relationship with the school. I have a relationship with the CEO, the principals over there, the principal over there, and a few of the people that work for the school, and even some of the students, because some of our books, you know, where 2 of our books are in the library over there. So, you know, and just having a conversation with, you know, just having a conversation with them, man, they ready for us to come visit, you know, and it's not just the people in Gambia, I speak to, but I'm just specific to them. They, you know, they waiting for us to come visit. You know, they need our, you know, they need our help over there. They need our resources because they're lacking, you know, even though they have one of the most natural, have the most natural resources in the world, you know, they still need our help, man, over there, man. And, you know, I just want to say, man, it's a myth, you know what I'm saying, that Africans don't like, you know, African Americans. You know, that is a myth, and we have shown that is a myth, man. Our African brothers and sisters love us, you know what I'm saying? And again, like I said, they waiting for us to come home. They waiting for us to fellowship. They waiting on us to come, you know, give, you know, our resources, you know, our help and etc.
Yes. Well, you know, it's interesting that, you know, the Africans have their perspective and then we here have our perspective. And I'm just thinking about your relationship with LaDosha Wright and the connection with Gambia and what came out of that, because she went over there. She brought them a curriculum that has to do with hair care. And I think as a result of the connection between you and her, there's also some import-export going on. So you developed a relationship. You've established the fact that, you know, they love us. They are looking for us, looking to us for assistance. And, you know, when we exist in our higher minds and we understand that we're all one people, and just because, you know, we were born in America, that doesn't make us any less African. When we work together, we can work towards developing those resources. One of the greatest deficits that we have as a global people is our failure to develop the continent. When the Europeans carved up Africa and they exploited it the way that they did, and then they left, they didn't leave infrastructure that would benefit the Africans who were there. And so they've been able to perpetuate that exploitation because they haven't had any responsibility for the development of Africa for anything other than their own needs. So, you know, they take the cocoa from Ghana, or they might take gold, or they might take the cobalt or the coltan or all those other resources. But, you know, they really haven't played any major role in developing Africa. And so now what you're seeing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sure that you're apprised of this, but now what you're seeing is the Chinese going in and developing certain parts of Africa. But I think that there has to come a point where, you know, African Americans leverage the $1.6 trillion that flow through our hands to play a role in the development of Africa for the benefit of African people. Just want to switch gears and just talk briefly, because you mentioned the group that you're in that has relationship to the Meta Nature. What do you see as the importance of what came out of Nile Valley civilization in relation to black folk here in America?
Oh, man. Well, when you look at Kemet, I mean, high science. I would say high science. You know, intellectualism. You know, that's, you know, yeah, you know, high science and intellectualism. I mean, Kemet was the go-to place. And I think if I'm correct, I think Kemet reigned longer than any other empire in the world. I think they reigned for like 5,000 years. So just like America right now is the go-to place where everybody comes to get their high education from, where they come, to America because this is a place of opportunity. Kemet was also that place. Back then, this is where everybody went to develop their skills. When you look at, when you look at certain, characters that we learned about in school, like Pythagoras and Euclid and Socrates and all these other Greeks and Romans who they say civilized the world and made all these great contributions, they never tell you where these individuals studied at. So a lot of these Greeks and Romans, we all know that they went into Africa. We know about Alexander the Greek. I'll never call him Alexander the Great. We was even, was taught to call him in school Alexander the Great. He's nothing great about the individual, but if you look at Alexander Egypt, when he went in, the Greeks went into Africa, he created a temple called the Temple of Marzion, which is a play off the word museum. So the Temple of Marzion was also like an institution. So a lot of these individuals and other Greeks who they went into these institutions. And these institutions was taught by people who look like us, and even just the Greeks, the Romans, the Arabs, the Turks, and et cetera, who went into Africa. This is where they developed a lot of their their high skills or technical skills from out of this place that that they call in Egypt, or what the Remich of the Kemetu call Taimeri, or what they call Kemet.
Yes. As you speak of this, I'm just wondering if you have any awareness of something that has been perpetuated by the Greeks, and that was the idea that they went to that place that they renamed Alexandria, and they burned down the library, which was a vast, storage resource of knowledge and wisdom of Africans. I have heard recently, and you can confirm or reject the idea, that they did not burn down the library, that they actually relocated the contents of that library to Europe.
I heard the same thing. It's so many different stories on that the great library of Alexander was burnt down by the Arabs. But I don't believe that was the case neither. I heard the same thing. It's not a whole lot of evidence. A lot of it's like hearsay, but they saying that yes, it has been relocated. I heard that it has been relocated into the Vatican. A lot of those books that was there are now housed in the Vatican.
Yes. Well, I would be really more apt to believe that than the fact that they would destroy all that, because the things that they have put out there as their own were actually things that came out of Africa. So they would have had to preserve those things so that they could perpetuate them. So I'm more inclined to believe that they kept those things and they used them for their own benefit. But time will tell. This is Open Door with Vince Robinson on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is author Kofi Piesie, author of Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans, and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. We'll be back on this 95.9 FM Burton Belcar Community Radio Station in just a few moments.
Are you or someone you know in need of help? Here's a resource you can turn to.
The Thea Bowman Center has been serving the community for over 50 years and provides services to help support Mount Pleasant and surrounding communities of all ages. Some of these programs include adult education like GED, computer classes, food pantry, senior outreach, youth after school, and summer programs, and much more. Are you a Cleveland resident in need of a GED preparation, a food pantry, youth or senior programs? Then call the Thea Bowman Center at 216 216-491-0669 or visit TheaBowmanCenter.org. Call the Thea Bowman Center at 216-491-0669 or visit TheaBowmanCenter.org to register today.
This message is brought to you by the Thea Bowman Center and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
WOVU listeners, did you know you can call us during any live show? Did you know you can ask questions or give your comments live on the air? If you didn't know, now you know. Call the WOVU request line at 216-271-0959. Your voice is our request. No one says it like you. You're better than the rest. Call us 216-271-0959. Questions, comments, complaints, we want all that and the kitchen sink. This is WOVU, our voices united. We can't do it without you. Call on through.
Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is author Kofi Piesie. He has written a book called Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. We were just having a conversation about the myth that the library at Alexandria was actually burned down. We happen to believe that they didn't destroy that knowledge. They kept it and they put it out as their own. And I think one of the most glaring examples of that is the Pythagorean theory. You brought his name up a few moments ago. And, you know, I'm always quick to tell folk that Imhotep was the person who created that. He was one of the world's first multi-geniuses. I mean, the brother was brilliant. And as you also stated, you know, different sciences, you know, civilization owes everything to Kemet. And it owes everything to Africans. And we could go on and on about the importance of history. And I think that's one of the reasons why those proponents of bans on critical race theory want to remove that knowledge from the mind space of young folks, because they're the ones who are going to be here when we're gone until we come back. So it's absolutely imperative for them to know the truth, and they want to keep the truth away from them, and they want to keep the truth away from us. So let's talk about this book, Castration of Africans and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. I'm looking at the, I guess it must be the cover, and it's got Ken Norton, who was in that film back in the 70s, Mandinko, and, you know, all that goes along with that. But then, you know, when you look at what's going on, particularly with respect to social media and, you know, our entertainment industry and all of that, you can see how sex plays a pivotal role in it. And there are certain stereotypes about black men, and there are things that happened during the enslavement of Africans, both male and female. What was it that drove you to write about this theory and to write about the reality of the way sex has been used as a weapon against Africans in the diaspora?
Yeah, I just found it kind of interesting. Like I said, the more I started digging into it, I started seeing, you know, castration. So I kind of dug a little bit deep to see what was going on with the castration. And the castration kind of formulated from the ideal from the European as well as the Arab, but the European took it to a whole nother level as they began to go into Africa and see and started thinking that the women was promiscuous because they were, not dressed, not understanding that Africa is a tropical continent, and it's hot over there. So they, their clothing, they don't wear a whole lot of clothing. And, looking at the African and began to judge the Africans, for having these big phalluses. So they kind of went back and forth in their minds that these men that they call in the Mandingo, which I talk about too, that the word Mandingo in Africa and the word Mandingo in America is two different things. One is related to a group of people who comes from out of the Mali Empire or resides in Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Cote d'Ivoire, and other different places within Africa. The Mandinko people or the Mandi people, these West African people. And then the Mandingo word, which has become a stereotype over here, and we even use that word as use that word, but it's a stereotype of the Europeans creating this thing that African men who had big phalluses have small brain space, or they are very primitive, and this makes them oversexual. And they came up with an ideal from the Mandingo theory that the women was oversexual as well. So this created this theory that African women, they wanted to be raped, they wanted to be sexual abused, they wanted to be passed around, and the African males had to be castrated because they believed that through castration that it will make the African male more stronger, make the African male more efficient, and it will make them safe around their wives, who they deemed in this theory to be pure white women. So they believed that the African male wanted to have sex, or they was oversexual, and they developed this sexual desire to rape their white pure women. So they castrated them, for that reason, as well as the belief that it will make them more efficient and more faster on the plantation, and it will make them more stronger. And as well, with this theory, it developed where they began to rape the African women, because this is what they wanted, because they believed that they was oversexual and they wanted to have sex all the time. So it was legal for them to rape the women, but also, I wanted to highlight that the white women was also raping the men at an all-time high that we don't talk about as well, because they was being deprived of having sex with their husbands because their husband was free to roam freely, and it was the norm, or it was no repercussions for the white man to rape the black women. So their white women, there was no repercussions behind that. So, I wanted to touch on how the white women also developed, from the Mandingo theory, this would empower them to rape the African male that was on the plantation. And they utilized them that is, they forced them to do that by threatened to holler rape or threaten other accusations on them to their husbands to have them killed if they didn't, have sex, with them, because again, this was empower them. And even though the women had slaves, but I wanted to highlight too, once the woman got married, it was a law that was passed that I can't remember right now, but I talk about it in the book, how this law was passed. If a white woman father gave her slave and land once she was married, then her land and her slaves would no longer be her own. It would be given to her husband. So this of raping the male would empower her and give her some kind of power and control, because she didn't have any power or any control on the plantation at that time. And I also, and I talked about how they utilized sex as a tool for us to kill each other, where they will go into late at night and pull other African males African males' wives and their friends and force them to have sex. And if they didn't, they would castrate them on the site if they did. And then they would force the wife's husband to watch her friend have sex and then orchestrate and manipulate, you know what I'm saying, and entice them over time that, hey, you know, your friend had sex with your wife and she did X, Y, and 3. And this will cause a rift between other African slaves. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to highlight that, how they use that as sex and the sexual abuse and even the sex as an economic tool, because there were brothels of where women would set up, would get these African males and blindfold these women that would come into these brothels, and they would choose these Mandingos according to stick in their hand, which you will see in the photo and on the book where the lady is filling the man's phallus to see how big his phallus was. So they would choose these Mandingos according to them reaching their hands into, you know, their pants to feel their phallus. So I kind of throughout the book, I kind of talk about that and talk about sexual breeding, how they breeded slaves, and there's not a myth, even though we kind of know that things are coming out that they did after the slave trade was actually ended. You know, how they used slave breeding, you know what I'm saying, as a tool because they couldn't go kidnap any more slaves. So I got information in there from slave narratives from people who was interviewed, runaway slaves as well as free slaves who actually told their stories and their experience on the plantation of actually them breeding other different slaves or forcing women to go into a shack with another man and live with him and marry this individual so they can breed and have these strong off-breed of slaves. So I kind of go back and forth through the psychology of both, but I briefly touch on the sub-Saharan slave trade, and I touch on the trans-Saharan slave trade, and I talk about the psychology of both dealing with the castration, because some of the beliefs of the Europeans was also some of the beliefs with the Arabs. But like I said, the Europeans took it castration and sex and rape and sexual abuse to a whole nother level when they developed this thing that's called the Mandingo theory.
Kofi, you just opened up a whole new lane in terms of understanding what happened way back then. And when we think about the enslavement process, and we always focus on what the males did, but now you have made us aware that, you know, females, European females were just as, I guess they had as much blood on their hands as the males did. That's quite fascinating in terms of that. And I think folks who are listening are getting a real education on the truth and the reality of the enslavement trade. You know, I've come to this epiphany that the folks who are on the dollars that we spend, the 20s, the 5s, the 1s, the 100s, you know, they were human traffickers. Let's just call it for what it was. They were human traffickers, and they have been celebrated. I mean, we have a holiday in October. Is it? No, it's in February. We have President's Day. And then in October, we have Columbus Day. And what we're doing is we're celebrating folks who were involved in human trafficking. Quite interesting conversation. We're going to talk more about this when we return. You're listening to Open Door on 95.9 FM WOVU. My guest is author Kofi Piesie. He's written a book called Mandinko Theory, Castration of Africans and Sex-crazed Conceptualization. And my brother, powerful information we need to know. Keep listening. We'll be right back.
You already know what it is. This is Artemis Carter with Youth Opportunities Unlimited.
What up, what up?
Hi, this is Brian Webster, the MyCom Regional Coordinator for Burtonville Car Development.
What up, what up?
Hey, this is Camille Hurd of Fellow, for everyone's love of hair and beauty, the first and only social marketplace for all of your beauty needs.
What up, what up?
This is Ben Golston
and Fred Ward.
What up, what up?
Hi, this is Kimberly F. Brown.
What up, what up?
Hi, this is Wanda Harris from Warrensville Heights, Ohio.
What up, what up?
Hi, this is Ken Hawkins Jr. Keep it locked.
What up, what up?
Hi, I'm Lindsay Sims.
What up, what up?
Hey, this is Keisha Allen from Home Repair Resource Center.
Because you're checking out the hottest radio station, period.
Anything that you need, we got to hear at WOVU 95.9 FM. I am your music director, DJ Chris Towles. And thank you for listening to WOVU 95.9 FM.
Hi, this is Vince Robinson of Larchmere Arts, and you're listening to the best station in Cleveland, WOVU 95.9 FM, Burton Bell Car Community Radio. Welcome back to Open Door with Vince Robinson. My guest is author Kofi Piesie, who is doing some amazing things in the publishing industry. You know, it's hard for me to keep up with all of the output, and it's not just you, it's many of the brothers that you are connected with. And I'm speaking in terms of folks like Asar Imhotep, your brother Sutek, Sean Calfani, you know, all of you guys. I commend you for your industriousness and staying connected. You know, I've been online and I've witnessed some of the programs that you've done, and I will never forget tuning in one night and you were having a discussion about the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. It's one of the most important books that's ever been written and ever been read. But then, you know, you mentioned folks like Dr. Ben and others. You know, what we have contributed to the world in terms of the things that we have written have been extremely impactful. And it is so important that we perpetuate scholarship. And that's what you brothers are doing. So once again, kudos to you for continuing to do that. Your book is available at sametreedifferentbranchpublishing.com. That's sametreedifferentbranchpublishing.com. And we've had conversations about this, but I just want to reinforce the importance of distributing our books on our own platforms and not relying on booksellers like Amazon, you know, who have a global imprint, but they also are exploiting writers and authors to a great degree just because of the mere convenience of it. But it's one thing, you know, to offer that opportunity to artists, but it's just so important for us to have our product and to control our product. So could you talk a little bit about that aspect of publishing and why authors need to put their own stuff out?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot. You know, about supporting the authors. I know it's cool. It's cool to say that your book is on Amazon, your book is in Barnes and Noble, it's in Target, it's in Walmart.com, you know, and it's in other various marketplaces. It's cool, but like you saying, they are, you know, exploiting the authors and the percentage wise, like, you know, 60-40 split, 70-30 split, that's terrible. They get 60%, you get 40%, they get 70%, you get 30%, you know, so that's a terrible split between the two. So it's very important to patronize the author directly if he has, facilitated a way for you to purchase its material, you know. So if an author has a website, you know, go directly and purchase that directly from the author, because when you're actually helping that author where he's able to fund other different publications, because he's getting what he deserves, or she's getting what she deserves, you know what I'm saying, from her intellectual property. When you purchase directly through them, you know, they get 100% of their intellectual property via 40% of their intellectual property or 30% of their intellectual property. So it's very important to purchase directly, you know, from the author, you know. But you have some people who don't want to go and mail out the books. I love mailing out books. I keep an inventory on our books, so I love mailing out the books. But, that may be inconvenient for some. So some people may want you to go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Target or Walmart.com or wherever the book, whatever marketplace the book is on. But just keep in mind that always patronize the author directly, because you want the author to get as much as he or she can from their intellectual property.
Okay. The other thing is just the idea of publishing it yourself, because many people think, I want to write a book, but when you write the book, then, somebody's got to publish it. So you go to a publisher and then you end up spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for someone to do something for you. And then they control the product and you don't. So, they put a stigma on self-publishing. But on the other hand, if you got a story to tell and it's a story that's based in truth, you shouldn't allow someone to be the gatekeeper to determine whether or not you can put that truth out.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. And it's real easy. People think it's rocket science to write a book. It's definitely not rocket science. You know what I'm saying? And the writing a book, I encourage everybody to that want to write, is to just do it, stop procrastinating and just pick it up and do it, do your research on it, or, reach out, you got people like me and, people like Brother Sar, Brother Wu Jiao, Brother Inner Sean Calfunny and other brothers, who are willing, to sit down and help you, get your publication out there, or even just put you in the right direction. I'm always up, to have a conversation with somebody on, the process, because a lot of people don't understand or know what that process look like to write a book. It is not rocket science when it comes to, the process of the, far as the, layout of the book, the structure of the book, how what your audience is or your target audience is, ideal for the book. So, and that's just some of the, some of the things just to get started is just writing your outline, an outline of exactly what you want to talk about, and just start from there from your outline.
Yes. So I want to shift gears and get back to the book that you've written and bring it forward to today, because when you talk about, the past and the whole enslavement piece, just a couple of things come to mind, and that is, castration occurs not only physically but mentally. So you could argue that African American males are being castrated in different ways today. It may not be the same scenario of being on a plantation and having massa take somebody out somewhere and do something despicable. But right now we're experiencing that mental castration. The second thing is that on the continent of Africa, you have Europeans who are going to Africa to, take advantage sexually of African brothers. And this is a perpetuation of that whole Mandinko thing. They're going over there, and because some brothers over there, are desperate, I guess. Perhaps it's desperate. Perhaps it's just being practical and realizing that they can use their bodies to, for monetary gain. They're going over there, and European women are going over there and having their way. What are your thoughts about that phenomenon right now?
Wow, you just told me something, man. I didn't know that the European women was, in this day and time was going over there and, having their way with, with the African male. But it's but I'm not shocked by it. it's nothing new. Like, you know, like I said, it's been going on, you know, ever since, you know, they created this kidnapping trade, man. White women having their way with African males, or forcing their way with African males, but now they're forcing their way with, I guess, the dollar bill. And we know, you know, that right now some of our brothers and sisters is not in the best place, you know, financially, you know what I'm saying, or supporting themselves or their family because of what happened when we with this slave trade, or even with colonization, or what you mentioned about the Berlin Conference with those European powers, so-called European powers, that came together to carve up Africa, you know what I'm saying, and rape it of its natural resources, you know. So, you know, I wouldn't say it's far, you know, it's far-fetched, and I actually believe it. And like you say, I mean, some of the situations, and even me talking with certain people, are me becoming friends with certain people on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter because of some of the things that I talk about on my YouTube channel, or some of the things I talk about on in my book. You know, people want to become my friends, and a lot of them are in Africa, in different countries in Africa, and they always reaching out, you know, I can't help everybody, but, you know, they're always reaching out for help, and I understand why they reaching out for help. So, you know, and I can understand, you know, some of our brothers and sisters being pimped out right now by these European women, you know, for money, or they doing it for for survival, you know, you know what I'm saying, to take care of themselves, or even just take care of their family.
Yes, well, I mean, the way that I became aware of it was something that I saw online about what's going on in Gambia, your beloved African nation over there. You know, they're coming. Somebody told me about it, but I was like, I need, because they wanted me to talk about it, and they were supposed to be sending me some information on it, information of what was going on, and like you say, in Gambia, but I never did receive the information, but I heard about it, but I didn't mean to interrupt. Oh yeah, and it's not just Gambia. There are other countries, you know. When we think about taking vacations, you know, we want to go to the Caribbean, we want to go to Europe or whatever, but Europeans go to Africa for what they call holiday. And some of them go to Africa with the intentions of satisfying themselves that way. They got money and they get what they want. That's what they've been doing for centuries and centuries. So we have just a few more moments. I just want to give you an opportunity to shout out your social media and ways that folks can contact you and get a hold of this publication that you created.
Okay. You can Facebook, my Facebook page, you can get at me on Facebook. It's Kofi Piesie, KOFIPIESIE, Kofi Piesie. My Instagram page is Kofi Piesie. My business Instagram is in Boca, because I have a online apparel company as well. So in Boca is the Instagram page. That's MBOKA. That's a Gambian word that means family. And so we created a company called Family Connect Apparel. And you can also reach me on Twitter. Twitter is also Kofi Piesie. To get my newest release book, Mandinko Theory, Castration for Africans in the Sex-crazed Conceptualization, you can go to Sametree, Different Branch Publishing.com and go into the bookstore and purchase your copy from there, or you can purchase any other publication that we put out also on Sametree, Different Branch Publishing. And if you are an aspiring writer or already established writer and looking for your book to be published at a cheap price, which we are the cheapest on the market. You won't be paying thousands of dollars. You can get at me at right now. You can get at me at LabarraceNelson at yahoo.com. That's LabarraceNelson at yahoo.com. Or as I learned, we all learn at yahoo.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me on Open Door with Vince Robinson. And to those of you who are listening, know yourself, love yourself, be yourself, make today your best day. Peace.